What up, y'all? It's your man, Mr. Mar Sharp, Short Man Filmworks in the building. Ooh, I was about to get that confused with my other intros, almost like I did before. But this your man, Mr. Mar Sharp, Short Man Filmworks in the building, and this is Motivational Mondays, all right? Today's message for today is, any excuse is a good enough excuse if you're weak enough to use it, all right? Say that one more time. Any excuse is a good enough excuse if you're weak enough to use it. All right. Many of us have walked around and made up excuses for the reasons why we can't do what we need to do in our lifetime, myself included. And sometimes I do it myself, and I have to check myself on that too. You know, you might make that excuse to say, hey, I don't have enough time to do the things that I want to do, or I have to do this before I do this. And you got to recognize and realize that if it's a good enough excuse in what you're doing, if you're weak enough to use that excuse, it's going to be a good enough excuse for you to basically cop out and move out of what it is that you want to do. You got to remember, you cannot give in to the weakness of making these excuses. You have to be strong enough. You have to be strong enough to stand on your feet and stand your ground and say, you know what? I might be having a hard time getting to where I want to go, but I'm not going to make excuses for it, because this is where I want to go. This is what I want to reach, and this is my goal. And you got to remember that you cannot make up weak excuses for what's going on. You can't blame anybody or anything for what's going on in your life if you don't make the necessary moves to do it. And if you're weak enough to make up these excuses, they're going to be good enough excuses. And you got to remember that. So just remember, anytime you're about to make up an excuse for something that you want to do and you just can't seem to find a way to do it, if you're weak enough and give in to the fact that, hey, maybe I just can't do this, if you're weak enough to give into it, it's going to always be a good enough excuse, because you'll start saying that same excuse. It'll start off one day, and then it turns into a week, or I'm going to get to it next week. Then it turns into a month. And next thing you know, that same good enough excuse will follow you for years, until eventually you wake up one day and you realize, hey, man, years have passed by without me doing that one thing I said I was going to do. You know, you got to remember, if you're weak enough to come up with that excuse, it's going to be a good enough excuse. So let's stop having weak reasons. Let's stop being weak. Let's stop being weak and start being strong enough to have good excuses to do what it is that we got to do. And if anything, let's not have excuses. Let's just be strong enough and go after what it is that we want to go after. No matter how long it's going to get there, no matter how long it's going to take for us to get there, no matter how hard it's going to be. Isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth it for us to go out here and work our dreams and work the things that we want to do and reach for higher plateaus and reach for a better version of ourselves? Isn't it worth it? So stop making up excuses, man, and stop being weak when it comes down to making up those excuses. And I'm not any different from y'all, because I've been there myself. I've made up weak excuses for myself. And it sounded good at the moment. And when it sounded good at the moment, I'm like, okay, it's good enough. But then when I realized so much time has went past and I made up these excuses, when I look back, I say, you know what? I could have been a little bit stronger. I could have been a little bit better, you know? So just remember that. Don't be weak. Don't be weak, because if you're weak and you make up an excuse, it's going to be a good enough excuse for you to stop doing what it is that you need to do. All right? All right. With that being said, y'all take care. Y'all have a good day. And y'all have a prosperous week.